had dealings with our neighboring countries, and it is all about promoting education and training. So the ICS is part of 26 branches around the world. But from my experience and my theories, my passion is in the education and the training. I'm the pricing manager for FATS, Forwarding Africa Transport Services, a freight forwarder in Hillcrest, Durban. We have just celebrated our 29th birthday. The company was formulated by my CEO, Karen Harris, and her sister, and has been predominantly a female business, but we are open to training opportunities, leading by example, and constantly holding the South African flag up high as we represented in all our international freight forwarding networks around the world. A person cannot build a reputation on what you're going to do, but what you have done and what you can share. Both of my roles take a large amount of responsibility, and taking trials and dares with decisions that have to be made as others look up to you and would like to follow in your footsteps. I started my shipping career in Richards Bay in 1998, first as a secretary in a ships agency company. It was just by fluke because I actually studied accounting. And from answering the phones, making the coffee, preparing invoicing, updating communications with vessels, port operations, and other team members, I developed this interest into the industry and later was promoted to operations coordinator. From the first time I boarded my vessel and meeting the international crew, seeing the port operation, and joining the dots in my head on the international trade aspects, this set my path to be skilled and wanting to develop my career in shipping. As I've had the opportunity to travel and work in various roles, this expanded into knowledge of other logistical fields and the supply chain. The opportunity to travel to the United Kingdom in the year 2000, after much frustration here in South Africa with the lack of vision for women to be working in our industry. Obtaining the employment opportunities abroad opened my horizon, taking on roles that were not known or that I knew existed. In a shipping company, the lingo was different, time differences were different, the international interaction, the ethics that was expected, and this within completing functions from marketing, chartering, ships agency, turnkey project cargoes, marine insurance, working with international crew, and the support through the human resource department. The career opened the occasional traveling, and I had the opportunity also to travel to Argentina, Dubai, parts of Europe, the Mediterranean, and North Africa. But as I was born in South Africa, in a mining community, my roots were getting far too deep in the UK, and therefore I made the decision to come back home with my young sons and my husband in 2012. I was employed in Richards Bay because that's where I originated from, and I had a background in the shipping industry from Richards Bay. I started as a financial controller, and with my knowledge of the shipping and experience, I was quickly promoted to control and report other functions in the branch, and then got the opportunity to move to Durban and grow within a corporate company. Throughout my journey, the skills have always been interlinked. Thus, from logistics to finance to agency, that I'm a true believer that you have to have an open mind, keep up to date with training, seek opportunities, test yourself, set goals, and track out a plan. Do a reflection. Don't wait to be proud of the small steps or achievements. You need to be proud of each step of the way. Shine and share. This has helped me a lot to find employment, grow, travel, and just work through my working career. I take a lot of risks, but if you win, you'll be smiling and be a winner. If you lose, well, chin up, as you have learned something and you will be wise. My boss, Karen Harris, often tells us, well, if you fall, when you're down there, pick up something and stand up and walk again. Now, working for FATS as a freight forwarder, I oversee a team that manage the booking of freight for sea, air, and road transport services, again, for local and international customers, focusing on very unique solutions, looking each consignment of cargo differently, having an open mind, We strive by our motto, let us take the load off your mind, because that's exactly what we do. We pass on the responsibility onto ourselves to get the cargo moved from A to B. I am a strong believer of this motto, as throughout my career it has taught me that those who handle the vessels, such as port agents, ship brokers, financial controllers, or a freight forwarder, you are the ears and the eyes on behalf of your customer. I've taken the journey to complete my studies. Again, another risk, big challenge. My mum told me that you are never too old to set another goal. If you dream of it and willing to put your mind to it, you will succeed. Here in South Africa, we are representatives of our country. It is our responsibility to promote and educate others around us within our ports, with our cargoes that we export, our opportunities for international trade, and of course, investment into our country. We have such beautiful aspects of our country that we can share and we need to treasure. As I am a true believer of what has been learned is to be shared with others, and that's why I tutor on behalf of the ICS, the subjects of liner trades and logistical multimodal transport. I'm also a mentor for our international understanding shipping course, working in the shipping and logistics. You're challenged on a daily basis. However, with the support of others and being aware of your surroundings and knowing the gears for the cogs of the wheel, the shipping and logistics industry can never have a dull moment. We must all do our part, create awareness of the industry, encourage that skills are learned at an early age from geography, English, literature, and writing, maths, and the application thereof. From research I've done, I've read that there's only 2% representation of women in our industry, and we need to make that change. Representing both the ICS and FATS today, I encourage continuous learning and the need to develop. As a representative of FATS, I'm able to utilize this knowledge learned and apply, and interacting every day with all kinds of participants of our industry. Speaking the lingo, wherever you're in the world, the international Incoterms has the same meaning. A container is a standard unit of measure, and the modes of transport remain the same. Thus, it is a small world after all. The ICS is internationally recognized for its quality in teaching and courses. Our courses are promoted throughout 26 branches of the world. With my qualification with the ICS, that was like a stepping stone of me being able to work abroad, be able to obtain the international recognition and the first steps I took to my career path. We need the industry and the government to assist with creating conducive environments and access funding for our shipping and logistics industry and promote the growth and sustainability. We need to be collaborative and be responsible to have the diversity and the skills. The success of every woman should be through inspiration from others. Be courageous, strong, and kind. From personal skill acquisition, motivation, and willingness to develop your career, there is an opportunity to set yourself apart from the competition. And I would thank you for the opportunity once again.
Wonderful, Catherine. Thank you so much for that insightful inputs. I've learned a few words from you. Thank you so much. You have given us a commission to learn and understand, gain knowledge, learn and apply using the industry narrative. So I've jotted down some of your industry narrative for myself. Thank you so much for that input today. And we look forward to the panel discussion at the end of all our inputs. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege to introduce to you our second panelist for today, and that is Ms. Lucinda Krige. Lucinda started her career at sea as an engineering cadet at Sea Harvest Corporation. Lucinda's engineering qualifications consist of engineering studies at Northlink TVET College, marine engineering studies at CPUT, and she successfully obtained her SAMSA's operator's license. I'm not going to say that whole word. She progressed through the ranks as an engineer and increased her capacity to relate objectively to and to understand both sides of the developmental training pathway. Lucinda's progression into the learning and development environment commenced as a fleet and technical training officer. She then advanced to her current position as HR Manager, Learning and Development. Lucinda leads a team that focuses on conducting, coordinating, and managing all training needs within the organization, as well as ensuring related functional compliances that the government requires of their organization. So without any further delay, Lucinda, you are most welcome to share your journey with us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for that introduction, Leanne. And once again, it is a privilege and an honor to be part of this event of SAHIMI. And to not think that I am from the fishing industry, and it's an industry that's not always invited or participating within various events or in the maritime sector. So yet again, it's a great honor for me to be here today. I would just like to share my screen. Oops. Okay. I cannot share it right now. Oops. Okay. There I have it. Thank you. Is it visible?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yet again, as I said, it's an honor and a privilege to be one of your panelists today. And I never participated in the SAHIMI events before, so this is a first for me. Okay, so when I received the invitation and I saw the topic of today or the headline, which states rising above the tide, breaking barriers as a woman, it actually forced me as a woman, as an individual, to sit and think of what that means in my life and what that actually meant throughout my journey. And looking back, I've never really had to do any presentation on myself or my journey before. Yes, I've had some publicity regarding my achievements within the fishing industry over the years, but never to the extent where I get to speak to the audience that I'm speaking to today to share my journey with him. So this has forced me to sit back and think, what does this mean in my life and where it actually started? And normally throughout the last couple of years, having done various publicity events, I've always only focused on the last while within the maritime industry and how I had to break barriers and how I had to achieve certain things that I have been the first woman in achieving in the industry. But looking back, I realized that even as a little girl, I've already set the tone for my career path. Because when I was not even in school yet, when my father asked me, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? When you grow up, what do you want to be? And my first response was, I want to be a policewoman. That was the late 80s, early 90s. And his question was, why? And my response as a little girl was, because there's not a lot of females in that area. And I haven't seen a lot of female police officers. So back then already, without knowing it, I've set the path for my career journey and I didn't even realize it. And over the years, I discovered civil engineering. That was in the early 90s. There was an article about the first female civil engineer within South Africa that assisted with building a bridge. And then I realized there's not a lot of women doing engineering. So that is then where my first passion for engineering ignited, because it was something not a lot of women did, but it was something that I was interested in. And when I had to choose my career in primary school, my first choice was engineering. And I struggled to come up with a second choice and a third choice for if engineering doesn't work out, because I was set on engineering. Not knowing what it entails in high school, I had the privilege of being able to attend Women in Engineering Days at the various institutions within the Cape area. And then I discovered over the years the different disciplines of engineering. And unfortunately for me, I then became interested in all of it. And I couldn't decide after school which one I actually wanted to pursue. Never did I know there was the one engineering field that I didn't even knew existed, and that was marine engineering. So after I matriculated in the year 2000, unfortunately, I couldn't go study further for various reasons. And I started working as a chambermaid in a hotel. And I set a deadline for myself. And I said, in the year 2003, I'm either going to rewrite my matric to improve my marks to get into an institution, or I will study a different field. And then late in 2002, coming home from a late shift, having done job hunting for almost a year already, my father came across an ad, and stepping in the door, he was extremely excited and he said, you know what, I found the job for you. And it was a small ad in the newspaper where Siavas was advertising for cadets. And I asked him, what is a cadet? And he didn't know. But all he knew and believed was, this was the career for me. And not very informed, I applied, and I started in 2003 as an engineering cadet with Siavas. And upon my maiden voyage, it was on one of the biggest freezer vessels. And I was privileged enough to gain better insight, knowledge, and experience on board that vessel for that maiden voyage that made me realize that this was the career I was looking for that I didn't know existed. Fortunately for me, I had one person who supported me and who believed in me and my abilities. And fortunately for me, that was my father. And he was my mentor as well. And stepping into the fishing industry was a first for me, because I do not have relatives in the fishing industry that I know of that has been in the industry for years. So there was no one I could turn to for guidance, advice, or any pointers. So basically, I stepped into an industry not knowing what it's about. I stepped into a career without a technical background, but then I stumbled across the career that I fell in love with. And I developed a great passion for marine engineering in itself, because as we know, engineering entails various disciplines, but marine engineering incorporates the various disciplines of the different disciplines. And you do a bit of mechanical, chemical, hydraulics, pneumatics, and working on board a trawler vessel. No day is the same. So you get to experience various things continuously. And that basically just added to my passion for the industry as well as for the career that I've chosen. So not coming from a technical background, I had to start my journey at the TVET College to gain technical knowledge. And that is where my journey at Northing started. I completed my technical subjects, and I completed sea service towards my SAMHSA qualification. And then I had to do my engineering workshops. And the funny part is, when I went to do my engineering workshops, I was sometimes the only female in the class. Sometimes I was one of 2 or 3 female students in the class. So throughout my journey, starting in the fishing industry, I've always been either the only female, or we were always less than 5 females in the group. So you always had to deal with being dominated by the males. You always had to deal with being discriminated against, because the males believe there are certain things you cannot do because you're a female, not because you have proven that you cannot do it, but just because you are a female. The bias is there. And I managed to complete my engineering workshop successfully. I then went to CPUT, completed my non-diploma subjects. At that time, they did not have the BTEC or the National Diploma for Marine Engineering. So I completed that. And in the year 2007, I went for my first SAMHSA examination, oral examination. And at that time, the only qualification they said I could apply for was a Marine Motorman Grade 1. And yes, I was a bit disappointed because that's not what I studied towards. But unfortunately, SAMHSA started integrating change in the qualifications for the fishing industry. So with my first exam, my father had to drive around the block 3 times before I got out of the car. That's how nervous I was. And knowing that the examiners at that point in time for engineering was only males, and already coming from the fishing industry, there was already a different approach towards examinations for the fishing industry. So stepping into that exam room was nerve-wracking. But once I finished and the examiner came back to me and he said, you were successful. And then I realized that irrespective what hurdles, obstacles, challenges you get to face, if you have a passion for what you do, if you set a goal for yourself based on your passion, there's very little things that can actually keep you from achieving that goal that you've set for yourself. Because if it wasn't for my passion for marine engineering throughout the 4 years as a cadet, I would never have completed my studies. A year later, in the year 2008, I went to go sit my oral exam again for a higher qualification. And the examiner at the time, Barry Jabba, said to me once I finished off, and he said to me, congratulations, you are now the first female qualified within the fishing industry in South Africa as a chief engineer. And it didn't hit home as yet at that point in time, because to me it was, I set a goal for myself and I achieved it. That's the bottom line. To me, it wasn't about, then I already forgotten about the fact that I said years ago that I want to be in a field where there isn't many females. But it was about setting a goal and achieving it. Having gone to sea again as an engineer in that after my SAMHSA examinations, I believed that it will make my journey easier because I'm now qualified. So I've proven myself to my peers as equal to them. But I was mistaken because even as an engineer, qualified as an engineer, I still had to prove myself to people with lower qualifications as myself on board a vessel. I still had to prove as a qualified engineer that I am capable of pulling a watch. I'm capable of doing repairs, planning preventative maintenance. And the saddest part is, it was very rarely that I was actually given the opportunity as an engineer, signed on the crew list as an engineer, to actually work as an engineer on board the vessel. Because you signed on, but then the chief engineer will not give you jobs as he would give a male second engineer. He would rather give those jobs to a rating and you just pull the watch. And then I realized, even as a qualified engineer, the challenges didn't stop. And the challenges and the mountains that you actually have to climb to prove yourself became bigger. The higher up you go, the bigger it becomes. And fortunately for me, I've always been blessed with a mentor. It has always been a male mentor. And today I realized why it had to be male mentors at that point in time, because of the field that I was in, because it was extremely male dominated. And I was placed with a chief engineer who just joined the company, and he was so energetic, so confident in his abilities. He was extremely passionate about teaching others, transferring skills, and giving people opportunities to grow and develop and prove themselves. That when I started sailing with him, I realized it's the first time I've been given the opportunity to sail as an engineer, because I was addressed as an engineer. I was included in discussions relating to what I had to do as the engineer on board a vessel, and not just being a name on a crew list. And that made a world of difference, because for that period that I sailed with him, boosted my confidence dramatically. And just before I started sailing with him, I was ready to give up, because I sailed with an engineer who didn't even speak to me as his second engineer. When there was watch handovers, he would write the notice on the board and he would go off watch. And that caused me so much stress that at some point in time, the doctor had to book me off for stress. And normally when he sailed with male second engineers, he operated differently. So when I got the opportunity to sail with this new energetic chief in the company, I was ready to give up, but sailing with him gave me that boost that I needed to keep going, because he ensured that not just boosting my confidence, but he worked on me as an individual, mentored me to rediscover my passion for the industry and why I was there. And he was the first engineer who said to them, when he goes on shore leave, I will be the chief engineer that relieves him. And that's where my journey as a chief engineer started. And if it wasn't for that turnaround, I would have given up already. And I needed that in order to further myself on the journey that I had to still continue on, that I didn't even realize. And having gained all that experience and knowledge and skill as an engineer, that is basically what helped me to get to where I am today. Although it's a different direction, but it's still another branch of my journey. And even if you go into another branch of your journey, the challenges seems to remain the same. It's decades later, and many women from different generations can relate because the challenges basically remains the same. And fortunately, I have gone through it before, and having met it again now in my journey as L&D manager, I could use that experience to navigate better through the challenges that I'm facing again. And the saddest part is many a times, especially when you look at inequality in terms of or gender inequality within any industry, within any line of work, many a times we give the credit to the area being male dominated, or for only males being responsible for keeping females out of certain positions in certain sectors. But I've learned over the last couple of years that that's not always the case. Many a times you find the queen bee syndrome within an organization. And the sad part is you would think and believe that another successful female would be more open to helping another female progress up the ladder, especially in the corporate world. But you would be surprised that it's not always the case. So many times the males don't have to do a lot to keep the females out, because sometimes the females in senior roles, they do the work for the males. And that is one thing that I've promised myself, that as a senior manager and being a female, yes, I'm open, or I am passionate about people development at this point in time, but I will make an exerted effort to make sure that I do not succumb to the queen bee syndrome, because it's easier to conform and adapt to your male-dominated environment than what it is to go upstream. And that is something I said I want to make sure that I do not fall into. I would much rather face the challenges, go upstream, get kicked back a few times, but if that means I pull another female up with me, then I will do that over and over again. And having been, even to date, the only female that has been at sea on trawlers as an engineer, I still do my utmost to look at opportunities to get more females in. Unfortunately, there's quite a bit of challenges on board our vessels to accommodate females, but that's not stopping me from looking at what other opportunities there is to bring females into the maritime sector within the fishing industry. So in 2010, I decided I've had enough of all the upstreaming with the seagoing guys, and I decided to give up. And later on, I was offered the opportunity to start a new part of my journey in skills development. And I was offered the position as training officer for the fleet and technical area. And having an engineering background, that basically helped me a lot in adapting to the new area that I'm in, because it's now a new lingo. First, I had to learn the mechanical lingo and the technical lingo and the seagoing lingo and adapt to that environment. And now all of a sudden, I had to come back to an office setup and adapt to working with people instead of machinery and learning the new skills development lingo. And I was yet again blessed with my training manager at the time, the late Keith Smith, to have the ability to recognize people's passion without them even realizing they have it. And he ignited my passion for people development, which I never in a million years thought I would have. I always said engineering is the field that I want to be in. And over the years, I said I'd much rather work with machines than I work with people. And eventually, I ended up more with working with people than what I did for working with machinery. And once he ignited that passion within me, it became very difficult for me to decide what my future aspirations would be, because then I ended up with two passions. And yes, I would love to go back to sea at any point in time. And yes, I have two beautiful sons, and going back to sea would be challenging, leaving them behind. But being passionate about engineering and being passionate about people development is making it extremely difficult for me to decide between the two. And so I'm still working on finding a middle ground. And at this point in time, the middle ground is whatever I do, I want to make a positive difference in any person's life that I touch, whether it's through the resources of the company that I use in my role as L&D manager, or whether it is as a mentor to some youngster out there, or whether it is through a publicity event, whether it is through even just interacting with young children outside of the workplace. Whatever I do, I want to ensure that I make a positive difference in someone's life. And that is basically what my journey within L&D has allowed me to do. And yes, it has been challenging, because yet again, for some reason, I always choose it, but I've set it for myself years ago. I started as technical training officer in an area where, till today in the fishing industry, there isn't many female fleet and technical training officers. There isn't many female L&D managers within the industry. There's maybe two that I know of right now, but in your bigger fishing companies, your positions of fleet and technical training officers, it's always filled by males. Your positions for training managers or L&D managers, it's always been filled by males. So yet again, in the industry, looking at senior management and higher up, you will find that your females are underrepresented. So therefore, I am working on my future aspirations. And one of it is that I want to make an asserted effort and a focused effort. I want to put on women empowerment. And this year, we're starting a women empowerment initiative where I am looking at selecting executive females within the company, outside the company, to mentor these females that we put on this first initiative. And the reason for that is the males that we have in our industry, especially now looking at executive level, they're becoming younger. Their views and operations are slightly different from the previous generation. And that is aiding in making opportunities available to females. But having female mentors, they will better understand the dynamics that our females have to deal with. Because when it's that time of the month, whether you at sea, whether you in the office, some women get it to such an extent that they cannot go to work at some times. And having to explain that to a man, yes, they know about it, but in the dynamic environment that we are in, are they always open to understanding it? Are they always open to wanting to accommodate a female in certain roles when it comes especially to those aspects? When you look at what our females in the industry have achieved and the work ethic and skills that they have, those are what I want our new generation of females coming up, what I want them to adopt. And that is why I want female-specific mentors for them, because they will better understand and they will better be able to navigate and guide you in terms of how to find that work-life balance. And that is one of our major challenges as well. Even nowadays with more remote working, it's easy for a male to say, I'm working from home today because my car's going in for a service. Let a female come and say, my child is sick, I need to work from home. Yes, they accept it, but there's always some reservation to it. Or saying that the children have to be at home for every second day. Being a female, saying that when it's related to your children, then you get a different response, you get a different look. But when it's a male saying that I'm working from home because they're doing renovations at home, that is fine. There's no remarks towards that. And those are the little things that sometimes eat away at a woman's confidence and a woman's ability to step up and say, but I can actually work from home, or I can do this differently. Because sometimes they don't do formal remarks. It's these informal side remarks that they pass that is actually eating away at you. And that leads to low self-esteem, which eventually leads to women resigning from senior positions or executive positions because they just become tired of the challenges. So that is why, for me, one of the most important things is to focus on a woman empowerment initiative. And I do believe getting female mentors in will definitely be of great help to our females. And in my personal capacity, I need to complete my BTech in marine engineering. And I know the head of maritime at CPUT has been telling me, Lucinda, you need to now focus on you and not just other people. And I think sometimes that is where we as females also hamper ourselves, because many times we focus more on others as we do on ourselves. And that is something that I personally need to work on.
Sorry, apologies, Lucinda. We have reached our maximum timeline.
Yes, I'll give
you 1 minute.
Now I'm finished. So yeah, so that has basically been in a nutshell my journey, and the challenges continues, but I do believe that irrespective of what, we can all rise above it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really am so inspired by your input, from a chambermaid in a hotel to chief engineer. What an accomplishment. Thank you so much for that input. I will do a summary of each person's input, and then we will go into the question and answer section. So if I can please, attendees, encourage you. Thank you, Peggy from Cape Town, for your comment. If I can encourage the attendees, you are most welcome to put any questions, any comments that you have in the chat box, and our panelists will be able to have time to just view them, so that when we go into the Q&A section, they will be ready to engage with you. Thank you so much. It is now my absolute privilege to introduce to you our third panelist for today, Ms. Siyamthanda Maya. Sia holds a Bachelor of Technology in Electrical Engineering, as well as an MBA from the University of Stellenbosch Business School. She is an active member of Vista South Africa chapter and a member of the International Bunkering Industry Association. As founding owner of ZAS or ZAS Petroleum, as well as co-founder and managing director of South African Marine Fuels. Sia is a seasoned business professional in the energy sector. She has more than 19 years of experience in energy industry, 6 of which she specialized in oil and gas trading and bunker operations. Sia then founded ZAS Petroleum in 2015, which is a licensed wholesaler of petroleum products that operates in importation and exportation, as well as delivery of fuel via trucks in South Africa and surrounding countries. And then in 2016, she co-founded the South African Marine Fuels, which is a licensed bunkering company in Algoa Bay, right here in the Eastern Cape. A woman-run enterprise with 100% South African onshore staff operating at the only port in South Africa that has licensed offshore bunkering and ship service operations that strategically targets both port calling ships as well as general passing traffic along the busy east to west routes. Sia, it is an absolute privilege to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Thanks for that introduction. I think you've done half of my job already. So without further ado, let me try and share my screen. Okay, let's do this. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much, Saidi, for such an honor to participate in this event for Women's Month, Rising Above the Tide, Breaking Barriers as Women. I will not dwell much here because Leanne has done an excellent job of introducing me. Yes, I am actually a board member of the EBA Association, the Africa chapter. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I like putting that because, you know, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we think that we are machines and we forget that we are mere humans. In terms of my journey, my career started some 21 years ago in the power utility, as I have an electrical engineering background, where I served in various roles for 14 years. On the latter part of my service, you know, I was tasked to set up a business unit within the provincial bounds of the Northern Cape, which was previously taken care of by the Western Cape, Free State, and a bit of Northwest. So that assignment, you know, was quite interesting, rather than the engineering management roles that I used to, you know, I was accustomed to. In that I had to learn to establish a business from scratch, right? And in the middle of that assignment, or at least in the early part of the assignment, as we know, the utility started, you know, load shedding, and we're going a bit bankrupt. So all of the budgets that I was expecting to have to start this unit suddenly disappeared, meaning that I had to now turn what would have been cost centers to profit centers. So I had to run it like a business, from recruitment, you know, to managing technical services with limited budget or no budget at all, where I had to really be creative, which was a deep end for me. But, you know, that's where I learned a lot about establishing a business. You know, I had much needed exposure in intergovernmental and industry stakeholder management. And that in itself gave me courage and confidence to actually launch into my own and start ZAS Petroleum, which is an oil and gas import and export specialized company, as well as a wholesaler of diesel in the country and overland to our neighboring countries. And through that process, you know, I launched into oil and gas. I have electrical engineering background. As much as I have operated in the energy space, oil and gas was a new environment altogether. But because the stats they already were showing, you know, there was not much participation of women-owned companies or women in general, whether in corporate or, you know, in SMMEs, in form of SMMEs, etc. There was just generally not much participation. And this was shown by the Liquid Fuel Charter, 10 years after it's been implemented. When government did the audit, they realized that, no, look, the women were left behind, even though it was meant to, expose all of those that had previously disadvantaged background, which were previously not allowed to operate in these environments. So I saw that opportunity, and then this is when I started my wholesale trading company. And through activities there, because my main, focus was more on exports, I was able to form relationships there, collaborate with international partners, and we saw an opportunity in offshore Gqeberha, where, there was, as SAMSA had opened up now, bunkering licenses. And myself and my partner thought, you know what, we already are exporting majority of these fuels, so why not then support the local position that has been created by the country? And we launched into bunkering. We didn't know much about bunkering. We knew oil and gas. So in 2016, we started. We started establishing the company. We started all of the license applications, and that took over 2 years, including, the environmental management plans, etc., that we needed to do. In 2018, we started operations. Started with 3 vessels, which we had to downscale. And 2019, the company then was able to be bought, majority of it by a foreign investor, which we needed for us to have the staying power. But throughout that time, I don't think that we are any different in any environment, in any industry. You meet challenges on a daily basis, different challenges. When I was in my wholesale company, I had challenges of finding funding, which I had to overcome and had to be creative around. In bunkering, we have many challenges as well. So wherever we've gone in our journey, we always find challenges that we had to overcome and that we had to just navigate. But however, what is great is that you see progress, day by day progress. Being the managing director of South African Marine Fuels, I know that there are 5 families that I have employed that go home and are able to sustain themselves. And that already has a knock-on effect in terms of people that are depending on these people that are working in the company, which would not have been if I did not have the courage to co-found this company. And similarly to companies that we procure from, we create these opportunities for people to be able to participate, whether by procurement, whether by offering of services. Either way, it's an ecosystem that needs each other, and that is symbiotic in relationships. So that those are the wins that you get. So all of the challenges make it worthwhile at the end of the day, knowing that you're making a difference no matter how little it may seem. Now, in terms of for me, when I was given this opportunity to speak, I had to think in terms of what was the key success factor, or what is the key success factor for me to be able to still wake up and do what I need to do, in order to survive. And I had realized through a lot of reflection that the key strength for me was knowing myself. And in knowing myself, I dissected it in this manner that I had to come and understand and accept that I am a person who likes working hard. I used to label it in a negative form where I would say I am a hard worker or a workaholic. But then I realized I actually do like working. I find joy in applying myself and working hard. And that is a strength in itself. I value lifelong learning. I value education. And this I can attribute to my parents because they were both teachers. And they always instilled in us, the value of learning, both in classroom and in life in general. And also I've had to learn the hard way that while it is important to adapt to changing environment, it is equally important to interrogate which factors influence your direction, because otherwise you will lose perspective and lose your way towards your journey. And also I value spending quality time with my family. It recharges me. And I had to come to accept that in all of the business, in all of the working hard, I must remember to spend my time with my family. Otherwise, I will be fatigued and I will not have a manner of being recharged. And most of all, what I draw strength from is that I am a very positive person. By nature, I see glass half full rather than half empty. And that has, contributed in terms of the strength of knowing myself. And with all of these attributes, it's what I've taken it in terms of the entrepreneurial journey to use, positively to sustain me. Now, in terms of my journey in the maritime, I still regard myself as a novice. I do value, though, the power of network. So I surround myself with the skilled, knowledgeable, diverse, experienced allies. I like the likes of Lucinda and Catherine. I love mixing myself with those people because then that's where I get, strength, and I get advice and counsel, and I get even, reprimanding if I need to be. But what has been important for me is not just to co-opt anyone, find people with similar values as myself. I do value the experience and the steep curve of learning that it has done for me, and I often reflect on it. I make it a point to remember why I started, because it can get so easy to forget because of the challenges that I mentioned earlier. You as a woman, you get a lot of opinions on how you should have behaved or how you should behave, how you should wear, how you should, present yourself. You can't be too assertive because that is viewed as arrogant. You can't be too soft-spoken because that is viewed as a weakness. Honestly, there are opinions all around. And if you do not remain grounded, you have a risk of derailing from your dream or from your vision. So you have to really remember why you're doing what you're doing. And most importantly, and I find that earlier in my entrepreneurial days, I used to forget this, we have to take care of ourselves. You truly cannot, pour from an empty cup. And it's really self-care and mental health is very important. So takeaways from my journey so far, I've come to accept that entrepreneurship is a systematic change that takes time. It's not an overnight thing. It needs an effort and dedication. And the journey is certainly not linear. There are many learnings along the way. And we have to accept that sometimes the detours are important for our growth. And as Lucinda eloquently said, and Catherine as well earlier, you're not always welcome in most places, but that shouldn't stop you because you have something that you have to achieve. And also you might be changing somebody's life who's passively watching you. You have to be persistent, you have to be resilient, have that commitment and sheer optimism. Sometimes it's just the optimism that takes you just a step further. Because I believe a positive mind breeds positive outcomes and vice versa. If you have a negative mind, unfortunately, you won't achieve positive results. So it's very important to go together. So collaborate and partner for success, but choose wisely because a partner can make or break you. Values, again, I have to emphasize are key. Do not be afraid to fail. Failure is part of the process, and in it, there are valuable lessons, right? I wouldn't even call it failure, but I would call it a detour that helps you to readjust your sails and go forward. They say that compasses do not make a skillful sailor. So it's quite important to go through the rough patches as well. But whether you are in your highs or in your lows, it's important to be yourself because the world needs you. You are unique. And really, you can overcome so many things if you do not act like anyone else other than yourself. And don't forget to celebrate the small wins. Every level has its own challenges. I mean, from the beginning till whatever level you're in, you are guaranteed you will never just be smooth sailing. There will always be a challenge to overcome. So don't forget to celebrate the small wins. Otherwise, you will be fatigued and you will think that you're not achieving anything. And of course, you must rest before your body forces you to, because the body has that ability to. And once you've rested, you get up and repeat. So in terms of the journey ahead, it's all about changing the world one person at a time, right? I do what I do to put food on the table, for starters, because we forget that. And though we use the current instruments that the country has worked so hard to have to ensure that, we meaningfully contribute towards, the eradication of poverty, towards participation of previously disadvantaged people in these environments, and just to breed more entrepreneurs, more corporate women, more government policymakers, because that's what we need as the entire community. So, being in the sector in itself is a contribution, because then it might motivate somebody to come in, or motivate somebody who was ready to let go to actually stay, to have the staying power, fostering positive and inclusive change by focusing on the employment equity to ensure that we have specific focus on women. Also using the preferential procurement tool to encourage meaningful participation of the SMMEs. And because that in itself is a measuring tool that you can see if you're progressing or not, which is great. And also continue to invest socially through skills development, which is a passion of mine, as well as, sustainability through environmental interventions. And also I think we need to, apologies for that, typo, but we need to look further than just opening doors in our own little companies. We can't be looking just through the confines of our companies. We have to be part of the knowledge generation, like we are doing now through SAEMI, by sharing, our journeys, good, bad, and ugly, hopefully to motivate other women to come in and take the space, because the more we are, I believe the more that the world will be more accepting of us as women, and the more we will shorten that gap that is quite wide in terms of by telling our stories through our journeys. I would like to end by my favorite quote by the ex-president Theodore Roosevelt, which says, "The man in the arena," which this quote really has taken me through the West and through the most. It just rings true in terms of my journey. It says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or whether the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." Thank you very much, SAEMI, for the opportunity. And here is to the women who are changing the world all over our country. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that insightful input, Sia. In fact, all three speakers today, Catherine, Sia, and Lucinda, there's a quote that can aptly summarize the collaborative input today. And the prominent nuggets that I've taken away from your input is that we rise by lifting others. Catherine left, she came back. There was a purpose. Lucinda started as a chambermaid. She made it all the way up to a chief engineer. There was a purpose. And her mission in life is, I'm going to bring others with me. Sia, exactly the same thing. Yes, I have walked a journey. It has not always been easy, but I have an intention here, and that is to lift others with me. I'm really loving the input. I'm loving the synergy. Above all, I'm appreciating the authenticity with which you have engaged with us today, ladies. I really want to thank you so much for that. So before we get to the questions and answers, and then we will permit a 15-minute bathroom break, I just want to summarize very briefly the little nuggets that I have grasped from your input today. So besides the fact that you have challenged all of us as women and attendees on today's session, where you have really, what came out very strongly was we rise by lifting others. So you've commissioned us. Yes, you are in a place, but go back and make sure that you bring others with you. Then, Catherine, something that really stood out for me was that you chose to be an ambassador of women in the maritime sector. That was a choice that you consciously made. Lucinda, for you, from an early age in your childhood, you just always knew that you would be a woman setting trends in uncharted territory. I mean, from a little girl to where you are now, you have lived your purpose, having reflected back on your childhood. Until your dad, I say hello. My father also played a very instrumental role in my life as well. So dads encouraging their daughters when they weren't even who we are today, I really appreciate that a lot. It's something very special for me too. And then, Sia, where you entered in was to say that, sorry, ladies, I had to go with 2 pages because I was really taking notes of what you were saying. I must be very honest at this stage. All I knew about maritime was how to make fish biryani. Now I've learned English that has expanded my idea of maritime completely. I'm going to look at that fish with new eyes from now onwards. And then, Sia, from your perspective, something that was very strong was knowing myself. And I really, that for me is also something that's very near and dear to my heart, and which was depicted in all 3 inputs today. It was, you shared your difficulties as women, and you could not be where you are if you did not know yourself. Even like Lucinda, who had her dad mentoring her and her dad being her biggest fan, to Sia having a network of people around her, and Catherine, to you taking your entire family and bringing them all the way back again to South Africa, just to impart what you have learned into our own country. And that has been the heart of all 3 speakers today, is that as we are growing, they are challenging us to say, now you go and do likewise. And don't only focus on yourself. I think, Sia, you were very strong about that, that it's not only about you, it's also about creating opportunities and spaces for other women to excel in their purpose and their destiny. So I'm going to just round off with some nuggets. Catherine, you said be bold and courageous. You ventured into a foreign land. So even if it takes you out of the country, be bold and courageous, where you obtain the skills that are so necessary in our own country, and you're living out that goal. You said you've got to be a go-getter and also be proud of each step of your journey. And then you ended off by saying you've got to take risks. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You are learning regardless. So thank you so much for that nuggets of knowledge. And then, Lucinda, you spoke about your father being your biggest fan, but you went from being in a chambermaid working on board a trawler vessel. And you didn't face yourself with the fact that you had to start at the bottom. You didn't just enter in and think, okay, I've arrived now, give me the opportunities, I'm here. You worked your way, whether it was probably cleaning fish. So today I have you to thank for that fish that I make the fish biryani with. I really appreciate it, thank you. So you started in a space where I don't think many women would take up that challenge. I certainly wouldn't. I call it job creation. I go to Woolworths and buy the fish. But you took up that challenge. You took up that baton. And today you are in a space of being a chief engineer focused on mentorship to bring other women with you. And something that I want to touch on is the bias narrative. And that is out of Catherine spoke about it, Lucinda, you spoke about it, Sia mentioned it. The narrative that because you're a woman, you cannot do this task. Just because you're a woman, you are not able to do that task. And the response from each one of you was, I'm going to say my version, watch me. I'm going to do this. So I really want to thank you for that encouragement that we still continue to do what people in essence would not expect us to do. It's how we become trendsetters. Then there was another input, Lucinda, you said, have a passion for what you do. And when you were speaking, that passion was just oozing out of you and you will reach your goals. Once again, I think it is determining, which Sia also spoke about, is know yourself, determining your gift as a woman. Because once you understand what your gift is, what your strength is, what your contribution to this world is, you can then utilize it and monopolize it and learn. Sia spoke very strongly, as well as Catherine, in fact, all women, all of you ladies, spoke very strongly about the education component of your journey, that you have got to learn. Things won't just fall into your lap. Understand the narrative in the industry so that you can participate in the conversations. And Sia, I'm going to close off with what you have said. Besides, networking is a critical aspect. And there I want to say this. Do not co-opt just anyone into your team, into your partnership, or as an associate. If they are not contributing to your vision or your goal, then perhaps that's just an acquaintance. So be selective about partnerships, associations, and acquaintances. But I want to close off with this. Sia, had to accept that you are a hard worker and not label yourself as a workaholic. And many of us, especially as women who are high achievers, we tend to do that. We tend to label ourselves. But I want to end with this. You said, I value. You said, I am. Now, what we put after I value this, I will only have these partners in my space. I am confident. I am going to become a chief engineer. So whatever we put after the I am is actually who we become. So in a summary of the three inputs, I just want to close off this section by saying, know yourself, don't label yourself, unlabel yourself, and accept, embrace who you are as a progressive woman. So I'm going to close by saying, I am Leanne Vasi, and it has been an absolute privilege to host you today. Wonderful women, strong women, and thank you so much for that encouragement. I do want to just quickly read some comments because I've got 1 minute. Well done for all your achievements and your drive. You know, somebody said your husband's favorite quote, in fact, it's his email signature. I hope it was that we rise by lifting others, Peggy. But yeah, I just want to say there has been so much encouragement through this session. And I really just want to thank each and every single one of you for attending this session today on behalf of SAIMI. It doesn't close here. I just do want to note that we thank our esteemed panelists because the second session will not have them necessarily included in it. And we want to thank you as SAIMI for your valuable contributions today. And to our guests, our attendees, we truly appreciate your attendance here today and engaging with the panel and giving them feedback. I really want to appreciate and acknowledge that from you. We will now take a few minutes break, and I'm saying a few minutes because I stole 1 minute. If we can please be back at 11:45, So we will use this opportunity to have a comfort break and kindly come back for the second session at 11:45. Thank you so much. I hope that we all have had a good comfort break and we have a cup of coffee or tea with us. I really just want to, at this stage, welcome you back to the second half of the SAIMI Women's Summit today. A hearty welcome. We will be hosting 3 workshops this afternoon. You have pre-selected your topic of interest, but you're not confined to that topic, and you have been assigned to a group accordingly. However, you are permitted, our technical respondent has advised that you will be permitted to choose an alternative should you wish to. So in group 1, we have the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and here we will be focusing on sustainable maritime operations, equality and inclusivity, and this will be facilitated by Marine Learning Alliance College. Group 2 will be focusing on entrepreneurship simplified, and here the session will be facilitated by Mahihlome Human Capital Solutions. And then the final group, group 3, will be focusing on the question why shipping matters, and also providing opportunity to understand how to connect the dots. And this will be facilitated by the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers South Africa. So in closing, attendees and guests, we wish to thank you, our facilitators, for this next session, for your contribution to the seminar. And we also wish to thank you, our attendees, for your valuable time and really putting in the efforts to be with us today. We wish you all the best for this section of the seminar. You are kindly enter any of the workshops you wish to participate in, and note that the host will inform you 1 minute before each room closes. So I want to encourage you at this stage, our technicians you will see a link for you to click on to enter into your workshop that has been assigned to you. Thank you so much, Lucinda.
Hi, Liesel. Can I check in with you, please? Hi, sorry, Liesel, you're quite soft.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes, I can.
Yes.
So do I go to the one breakout room and from there would go to the second topic?
So you'll go to the one group that you were assigned to when you registered. Then you'll just need to come back to the main group, and then I can move you to the next workshop.
Oh, okay. I'll do that now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.